how do you go about do you have certain areas that you prefer to work in or will only work in, or certain areas that you won't work in? Like, how important is geography in business brokering?
Well, like I said, driving distance, pretty much. Now, by that I mean I don't want an overnighter if I can avoid it. So in our case in Spokane, that's quite a ways actually. Olympia, I've got a listing in Olympia, and it's okay. It's quite a haul though in I-5. If Diane's got an I-5 down there too,
Yes.
and it's crowded, and that's the only corridor that we have. And so we have to, it's a fairly active listing, and I'm driving quite a bit. So once you get an active listing like that, you have to be ready to jump in the car and go because you want to be there if the seller, if the buyer's going to be there.
Yeah.
You just want to be on site if the buyer's going to be there. And so that's
Okay.
kind of my mentality. I don't want that buyer going to the site without me.
Yeah.
And the seller needs me there too. He needs me to stand there and listen to the whole thing. And I need to insert, and I'm pretty bold. I'll say, listen, you guys want to communicate with each other, that's great, but you need to keep me in the loop on this. And you need to, if there's any emails that go back and forth, do you guys agree that I'm in the loop? And I make them agree right in front of me. Um, but I'm old and I can get away with stuff. But I think that's very important because you just don't want people to go around you and start doing their side deals.
Yeah, I think that's a great point that you make. I got burned once. It was a restaurant, and I made that cardinal mistake of letting the buyers. And it was a long distance for me. I live in Simi Valley. It was in Long Beach, so it was a major hole on like three different freeways. And although we had several meetings, there was this one meeting that the buyer wanted to engage with the seller. I could not attend it. It was a last minute, and I did my best to avoid that meeting happening until I was available. But they both were very insistent to get it done, and so they did meet. And next thing I know, I'm told some horrible story about the buyer had fallen and broken her shoulder, and she can't move forward with the deal anymore. And next thing I know, the request comes in for canceling escrow because we were already in escrow. And that's why I allowed that meeting to go ahead. And something happened during that meeting when I wasn't present. So I think it's pretty crucial that, yes, like Dick said, be there at every meeting. Do not let them meet unless, it's the final walkthrough or something and escrow is just closed.
Well, in residential real estate, the buyer leaves or the seller is off-site. Residential knows they don't want the seller walking around in that house when the buyer's there. And I mean, that's a kind of a slam dunk in residential. But I think we think in business that it would be good just to let the buyer and seller talk to each other. And it's just not. Everyone's got an ego, and business brokers or business owners typically have very strong personalities. They're entrepreneurs, they're go getters, they've made decisions, they founded this company, they're proud of it. And someone comes in and says, wow, you could have done this or that. And they get defensive, and all of a sudden they're at each other for no big reason, right? They're just, you know, so that happens. It just does happen. And it can happen with big businesses and small businesses alike. It doesn't matter the size because people are people. And you just have to kind of judge your buyer and your seller. There's certain buyers actually I won't take to the site. I've done that. I've just turned them down. I said, you're not a buyer for this business.
How do you determine that, Dick? I mean, is it just a conversation that you're having with them? They won't give you proof of funds?
Well, um, Yeah, John, I'm sure that everyone can punch holes in my thinking here, but you get a gut feel for
It's a
things.
vibe. You get a vibe.
You do, and there's certain people that you could. I've been in sales, and you could walk in the door and say, "Here's 25,000 cash. Will you take it?" And they say, "Well, I don't think so." They're not going to take it. They don't trust you, number one. And so at the end of the day, you could, answer all their objections, and they'll come up with something like, "Well, could you add pink polka dots to that?"
Yeah, yeah,
No, we can't. Well, because there are people like that. They're never going to make a decision, never going to pull the trigger, and those are the kind of people I stay away from as buyers. They'll never
got it.
pull the trigger. They'll ask questions and take your time and waste your energy, and they'll never make a decision. I can suss them out pretty good.
I've
I've
ex
met a lot of people like that, and
that I experience that somewhat when it comes to small businesses wanting to lease space because there's a lot on the line when they're signing. Even a 3-year lease for a lot of businesses these days
yeah,
is too much of a like risk in their
I don't think it's as bad
mind, right?
in
So
in real estate, Kimberly. I think people are used to it. It's a much easier mentality to buy real estate for some reason, even though you're buying $1 million house, right? And you're not going to get a penny back if the value is going to drop. And you're still buying $1 million house, and your wife's happy, and you have a house. Some reason in business, it's bottom line. It's totally bottom line. You don't buy a business unless you're going to make money. And
mhm.
that's the point of a business. And so some people have the mentality of they're well, I'm not going to box people in, but there's some people that just are so fiscally conservative, they can't see out of they just can't imagine the way it needs to be. I mean, I've owned many, many businesses myself, and I've operated around, I've been a consultant in business and consulting and so forth. And I've just, over the years, you learn things. And I've worked with people, I've had a lot of employees, and I want to give everyone the benefit of the doubt, but not everyone's an owner. There's an owner mentality, and you'll find it. Some people are never going to be an owner of the business. They're not self starters. They don't get up in the morning on their own. I ask people, I said, "Well, what are your hobbies?" And we all are looking for people to work with us. Yourself, all of you are self starters. I know you are, or you wouldn't be sitting here. But we know all those other people that never got up in the morning and are complaining. Um, and it's the same thing with buyers in my mind with businesses, because businesses take management. Homes don't, offices don't. They're passive. A lot of times they're passive. So, but in business, you got to have someone, if they're going to be the operator, especially, you they've got to be, they've got to have something on the ball. And there's a certain kind of personality trait. Anyway, I spoke a lot about this because I'm very opinionated on it. But so uh, I do think though that the buyer is important, and you have to check it out, and don't waste your time with the wrong buyers.
Yeah, I think you're right there, Dick. I think those are very, very important. No, that's an important conversation to have on a call like this, so that we know and we're better informed. Buyers are, I don't know, this is the old adage that I've heard years ago, that buyers are liars and sellers are yellers, and I know that's not true in every case, but you learn things, as you get into the transaction, and like you mentioned early on, there's a lot of egos at play here, and once these egos start clashing, it gets tough. I mean, to complete a deal at that point. So, yeah, we do a lot of babysitting, right? Holding hands and babysitting and walking people through the deal.
Yeah, there's a rule of thumb. It's better to ask questions than tell people answers. And if you listen to people talk, you'll learn more. And I have a little problem with that, as you can see. I'm very opinionated about stuff, so I'll say something, and I need to really hear the other person's heart. What are they thinking? What's going on? And I don't want to be too hard on buyers here, but I'm actually, as you know, because we're in a mentee mentor relationship here, we're in a small group, we can kind of, admit our weaknesses, I think. But one thing we all have in common is we have time that we spend. And I think what we're learning here today is be wise on how you spend your time. Is it going to pay off?
How